So, guys, we're back for another session in the festival. We've done our best and we're doing our best to make sure every session is impactful, insightful, and helpful. And this session is no exception. Really excited about this session because it spawned out of just the off the cuff conversation that I was having with one of our guests a while ago, maybe last year or earlier in this year. And it was literally about seeing the bigger picture from the side of acting, but then leaning into the rest of the industry. So we'll jump straight into it. I am really excited to introduce Nagajan Ward and Ashley Walters, who are amazing creatives in their own right, but also co-founders of a really innovative production company called Slander. I'm sure you guys all know it, but I got to do these introductions to set the scene for those who don't. Welcome, guys. How are you?
It's Nagajan Modhwadia. It's not Nagajan Ward. That was a name that was used a long time ago when I was doing acting.
Okay.
It was like a stage name that I used a long while ago. So I go by Nagajan Modhwadia now. So
interesting. So Nagajan, right? Do you know what? I think what you touched on, right, is something that I saw when I was growing up in primary school, particularly from like some African children whose names were like a little bit different to what like teachers were used to. But I want to ask, like, why was the name slightly different when you were acting?
So I just kind of at the time, this was in the 2000s,
Mm.
mid to late 2000s, and I just remember just doing lots of research on British Indian actors,
Mhm.
or Indian actors working in Western film and television, and the majority of them had stage names. So even like Ben Kingsley is, I think his name's Krishna. It's not, and Cal Penn is Kalpen Modi, and just a whole plethora of them. Used stage names because it was easier to read. It was easier to work out the gender, and it was looked more marketable against Western names. So yeah, I just kind of decided to go with a stage name. And I used to be self-represented, so I didn't have an agent. So I used to put myself up for a lot of work
Mm.
myself, and I did see an uptick in people seeing me. It's really easy to like jump in, to make, to just make a very kind of just brash judgment that, oh, it's racism or this, that, and what have you. I really don't think it's that. I think it's when people just find it easier to pronounce your name, know where you're from, where you're. I just think it's just easier for them to say your name, and I just think based on that, it was I was getting I was getting more auditions.
I love that. Thank you for the honesty. Apologies and thank you for
That's so good.
correcting me, Nagajan. All right. So in terms of this session, right? The title is Acting's Only the Starting Point, right? And that will unravel itself very shortly. But I guess in terms of Ashley, everyone knows you're an actor, but Slander is this new beast that you guys have set up and are taking on. Could you guys give me like a bit of an overview of like what you both do and how you work together on Slander?
Yeah, so we've been running since what, 2017?
Yeah.
2017, we kind of sat down. We both love the industry. I was already acting. Nags was acting back in the day. And Nags was running Kingdom Drama School for many, many years now. So we've both been around it. We directed, I directed a pilot for a TV show that Nags was producing with Sheila Naughtley back in the day. And that's kind of where our relationship sort of blossomed and started. And then, we sat down. Long story short, we sat down and kind of Nag said, like, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's create content. Let's create shows. Let's create films. and bring them to the market. You know, we did this obviously with my years of experience as an actor and kind of being inside already, and Nags having like some, you know, some brilliant knowledge of structure and the game and how the game works, and we kind of bumped our heads together. But little did we know, you know, it's been a huge learning curve for us. Like, I'm just keeping it proper real with you. Like, you know, looking where we are today, how we handle business and stuff like that. It's amazing. It's amazing to think that we actually made it here, if you know what I mean, because the obstacles in the beginning and the routes to market that we thought would be so easy to kind of, do you know what I mean? Like, jump over these obstacles. It just wasn't that way at all. You know, and no matter who you are, no matter how well known you are in the game for whatever you do, in my case, acting, it opened doors. But once you get in those rooms, you still had to have the knowledge. And we didn't have all the knowledge in the beginning. So, you know, every step along the way, sorry, the cleaners are here hoovering outside, but every step along the way, we learned. Do you know what I mean? We learned, we got knocked back, we went back to the drawing boards, you know, we learned. There's only 3 of us in this company, right? And we've never been funded by any outside source. So all of this has come from everything that we've generated from internally. And you know, having Laura Russell, who's our like head of story development, right, in our team, it's just between the 3 of us knocking heads. Do you know what I mean? Sitting down for like a day, 12 hours and quarterly meetings every 3 months and working out what we're going to do for the next 3 months and how we can change what we did wrong. And do you know what I mean? And just kind of really, really grinding, like, you know, to make it work. I think we're in like a really cool place now. You know, we've got a few projects that are really close to going. But yeah, but it's a tough game, man. It's a tough game. I'm just glad that we stuck at it, because I think, you know, this is no offense to anyone, but like, you know, a lot of people would have given up at this point, because, you know, financially we're not gaining anything out of this at the moment. We're just driven by passion and our love for what we do.
I love that. I love that. Thanks, Ash, for the honesty in terms of like the challenges.
Oh, sorry, I didn't answer the question. Actually, the question was, what we do is create. We create. You know, we are like, I think that's kind of what makes us stand out from a lot of other production companies, especially little indies. We don't always look to go and acquire scripts from writers or ideas that have already been created by other people and become the middleman and take them to broadcasters or streamers or whatever. In-house, a lot of our ideas, a lot of the stuff, I mean, the stuff that is close to going over the line at the moment, we created in-house between us, you know? Like, we create our own IP, which kind of makes us quite special, that we are able to create returnable TV shows or films or whatever that the market, that we know the market want. So yeah, I mean, that more answers the original question that you asked.
Oh no, that's fine. Thank you. So Nags, right? You know, Ashley mentioned that you came to him and was like, cool, let's do this, right? And then he's spoken about like obstacles and the realization of what let's go actually looks like. What was, when you initially like sat down with him, what were your thoughts in terms of, all right, cool, this is gonna work, like, and versus the reality of what you guys have encountered?
So the question one more time.
So when you initially sat down with Ash in terms of like, let's set up this production company, what were like some of the key reasons that you felt like, do you know what, this is why it's gonna work?
Okay, so right, so prior to like approaching Ash to do the production company, about I would say 6 months, 9 months before that, maybe a year, I decided that I was going to start a film production company, and I kind of said, I'm not going to be partnering with no one. It was kind of like, I'm going to do this independently. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I was working with Laura Russell, that Ashley mentioned earlier, who's our head of development. So we used to keep meeting up on weekends and evenings, developing IP, developing ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and then and through that, and I'll reverse back a little bit more as well, is that another thing that I realized was, because I've been producing before short films and what have you.
Yeah.
What I realized by working with Laura is that I wasn't doing things in the right order. So when me and Ash first started working together, I thought I needed to understand technically how you shoot something and get really high level, like, good production value.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of my early work has really good production value, but the storytelling is, I was never happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
So the storytelling wasn't on point. So I'd keep watching the stuff that I made. I'd be like, why am I not fully in love with it? And I couldn't work it out until I started working with Laura and started developing ideas and scripts and what have you. I was like, oh, you know what? I don't need to I don't need to know what lens works with this camera, with this type of lighting, for this type of mood and this type of camera movement and this track, and these are the codecs you use, and this is how you convert it to this intermediate codec so you can get better color grading, and then all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, no, I don't need to know all of that. I need to understand story, and that was because of Laura.
Mm-hmm.
So then we started developing ideas, and I started seeing how much work goes into developing an idea and developing a concept and getting something to script. And then when I was going through that process, I watched, and I had a working relationship with Ashley, but we were kind of, maybe at this phase, we would just touch base, bits and bobs, once a year, like 18-month gap, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was watching an interview on YouTube. I think it was a South Bank festival, and I think it was something like How to Be a Man or something like that. So they had different speakers on and what have you. And Ashley's interview came up, and I think your sciatica must have been playing up, Ash. So you were doing that interview, and I remember you said, like, you were in pain, I could see, and you were like, you didn't want to miss the interview. It was about a 10-minute interview, 15-minute interview, and there was a couple of things that Ashley said in that interview. Like, I already liked Ash because of the relationship that we had built, but when I was watching that video, I was just reminded, and more importantly, it's like, oh shit, we're so aligned on so many different things. When he was talking about, just talking about his journey, and what he was doing and what have you. And I remember it just became, it was like, I have to work with Ash. I have to work with Ash. And then I spoke to Laura about it. I said, look, I've got some ideas. I want to pitch Ashley like 2 bits of IP that we're developing.
Yeah.
And the whole thing about this production company will be that we're going to develop stories from our culture, our world, things that we understand. I think the mistake I was making before, I was trying to develop ideas that I thought the market wants. Where it was like, you know what, we're just going to lean into exactly who we are and absolutely own it. And then just not make it art house, but make it, tell our story so it can reach a wide audience. So it's a commercial piece of IP. So after seeing that interview, I said to Laura, look, Laura was kind of dubious at the time. It's like, are you sure you've been saying you're going to do it alone and what have you? And I'm like, just trust me. I know, like, it was really instinctual, really instinctual. And I have told Ash about this when I spoke to some of the close people around me. They're like, don't partner, go on your own kind of thing. And then, but I can't explain it. It was just in my instinct that I believed that this would work. I won't even say believe. I don't know. I just had a feeling that it would work. And then I approached Ash. We met up. He used to live in Crouch Hill at the time, and then we went to a cinema around the corner from your house, and it was in the roof. It was like an independent, nice little cinema. It was on this little balcony on the roof, and it was like 10 in the morning or something. So it's like the building was empty, like people just coming in and like setting the place up and stuff. And we sat up on this balcony, and I remember I had like a 1 hour, like I had a rough skeleton of what I was going to talk about over the course of like an hour, and then how I would sell this idea to And I just remember Ash just saying, I remember when I showed you Pirates, the IP for Pirates, and it didn't, and all of the IP, and also I was approaching Ashley, even though he wasn't quite doing it at that time. I approached Ashley as a creator, director, and exec producer. Even though he wasn't doing those things,
Yeah.
I didn't take him IP and be like, look, I want you to be the lead in these shows. Like it was Commonwealth and Pirates was the two bits of IP. And it was like, Ash, both of us are children of immigrants. And that's, there's a big element of that in this IP. And who better to tell this stuff than us? So I approached him from that angle, and I just remember him like reading Pirates, and when you read the page, I remember Ash saying, "I want to be in that." And I remember thinking, "Holy shit, he likes this! He likes this idea! He likes this thing that me and Laura have been slaving over for about 2-3 months." And it was like, "Shit, this is going, this is going really well." And I just think he said, "Yeah, cool, I'm in," and I'm like, let's talk in 3 days. I remember saying, how can you just be in? Digest it or whatever. Then I reached back out, I think 3 days. You're like, I think you just said, I told you my answer that, the day I met you. I says, all right, cool, we're going to do this. And you're like, yeah. And then we started, and like Ash said at the beginning of this call, Ash didn't use the word naivety, but I would say I was just mad naive about what we're about to embark on. Pretty much everything that I suggested wasn't the right strategy, and had to learn from failing, had to learn from no's, had to learn from failing, really analyzing why things are not getting over, why things are not connecting, why people are not biting, things like that. And then we've adapted to the point where we actually know how to do it now. And it is a formula, it is a code, and it is understanding, and it is a lot of reading people, and also just knowing how to talk about your IP to whoever it is that you're talking to, because you've got to adapt to the person. Because if you're speaking to an actor, because you're trying to attach him, or a director, but then it's a commissioner, like they're all slightly different conversations. So a lot of learning, a lot of failing, a lot of heartbreak, but yeah, it's got us to a point where we're, like one of our feature films, it got greenlit for the UK finance last week. So now it's just about bringing in the international sales and the rest of the finance to get to the full budget. But that's 6 years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That is, yeah. What a journey. I guess, Ashley, you said something, right? Like when we last spoke, which for me spurred on this session, right? You said actors get paid least on a show. Can you explain what that statement means?
Least on a show. I'm not sure. I mean, there's loads of other people that will get paid less than
Yeah, I guess in a bigger sense.
In the top tier.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was kind of talking about. And there is exceptions to that rule, because if you are, I don't want to say names, but if you are those A-listers or whatever, you could demand as much of the budget as you want in a lot of cases. But I mean, technically, when you break it down, creating the IP, being an exec producer, having a certain ownership of the show's trajectory, kind of puts you in a better financial position in the long run. I think a lot of the time with actors, unless they are incentivized by having some ownership of the back end of a show or a film or whatever, you get essentially what is a buyout. You're paid up front to perform handsomely in a lot of cases, and you can get some royalties. Do you know what I mean? Residuals after that, but essentially, like, Nags and I, if we create a show and I'm also in it, my acting money will be the least of my earnings. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Because down the line, you know, as long as we retain that control of the IP, right? Down the line, that show can come back. It can get sold to different channels. It can get sold in different territories. It can, do you know what I mean? And we will always be getting a piece of that action. So it was kind of like, it's a natural progression, because I feel like for me, not that I won't say I was bored of acting. I have said that before, but like the challenge wasn't there anymore, and maybe that was a lot to do with the roles that I was taking on, or the roles that I was being offered. So I think it's a win-win on both sides, because the fact that now we are creating vehicles for me gives us the opportunity to, you know, the guys can sit down with me and go, what do you want to do? Like, what character do you want to be, like, or whatever? And I can, you know, we can talk about it and come up with stuff and kind of make shows that fit around that kind of structure. So kind of winning on that side, getting the challenge or whatever, and then the challenge of like what I'm doing now, like directing and producing even, you know, look, I'm quite far behind Nags when it comes to understanding like producing, just, you know what I mean, in general, because Nags is like, he's frontline out there in this war, right? So he's legal man, he's, you know what I mean, business structure, like all of that, he's over all of that on a daily basis, which means he's having to learn and fight like day in, day out or whatever. Whereas I'm the guy he calls in the evening and goes, listen, this is what's happening, rare, whatever, and then brings me back to scratch or whatever. So yeah, like I've still got a lot more to learn in that, but it's challenging. And that's what keeps me alive. Like directing a show is challenging because I haven't done it as much as I've done acting. So every day I go on set, it's like, it's really fun, even though it's stressful, but it's really fun having to navigate how I'm going to achieve something in that day. And I have never achieved that before. So it you know, it's just a beautiful like space to be in, and you really get to having this, like, being privy to what happens behind the scenes and how things come together or whatever. Actually, it surprises me after all these years. Remember, I've been acting since I was like 6, maybe 7 years old, right? I'm 41 now, and I didn't know any of this stuff was happening. Do you know what I mean? Like, I used to turn up on set, do my thing. I didn't know what the director was going through personally. I didn't know what the exec, you know, how many years it took the execs or the writers or whatever to get the show to where it is before I come on and perform. Like, you really have tunnel vision as an actor. But in this job, what I'm doing now, like, you have to think about the whole thing. There's a lot of times where me and Nags will have conversations or meetings about things, and I'm like, I've got my actor's brain on, and I'm like, so what? Like, no one don't care about that. No one don't care about this, and we should just do it this way or whatever. And Nags has to kind of be like, but bro, you know, the bigger picture is this. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're not just Ashley now, you're Slander. Do you know what I mean? It's like the journey is a bit different. So it's hard to get used to, but like I said, challenging, man. I'm enjoying it.
I love it. I love it. Now both of you have mentioned IP, right? And I only really, like, someone began breaking down IP to me and its importance, I think, a year or two ago. And it's not something that I've heard outwardly like a lot. But you guys have mentioned it probably about 10 or 20 times in this conversation alone. So what is IP and how important is it?
Nags, you want to go?
Okay, so what is IP? So we all understand real property, so bricks and mortar, right? So that's really easy to kind of understand. And then, you know, that can start getting complicated when it's like, if it's a large building, it's, you know, you're selling leases, who owns the land, what's the property tax, all of it can start getting a little bit more complicated. And that's when you have legal paperwork and who's the owner and the hierarchy and the structure and leaseholders and, who provides services to it and, and who's responsible for drainage and all of that. So it starts getting complicated. But if you think of bricks and mortar, so that, that's property and how it can be owned and how you can make profit from it. If it's a large building, there's lots of different ways. And that's where you have lawyers who kind of start working all of that out for you. So if you think of IP as intellectual property, it's important to remember that it's property. Like it exists, might be in the mind and then on paper and then eventually on screen and and what have you. But the early part of that IP is in someone's mind. And then at some point, once it starts getting down on paper, for the first time, it's whoever's writing it. So it's just like if I own a camera and I take a picture of you, I still own the property. I own the photo because it was on my camera that I paid for. Or like when Ash was explaining to me a little while back, it's whoever pays for the studio time owns the masters, when you're recording and what have you, and like who's paid for the studio time and whatnot. So IP, it first exists as an idea, and then it starts, it starts forming as it starts getting ink on paper, and then it's like who's written it? Is it written in collaboration? Has it been written as a commission? If it's a commission, then the commissioner. So if I commission a writer, say, look, I want to do this, or what have you, I'm doing a buyout or whatever. So I pay them. So on whatever ideas they come up with, I'll have ownership on it or what have you. If a writer's done it on their own, they own that IP. Then they're coming to me. They say, oh, I'd like to option it, or I'd like to license it, own it, or whatever. So it's initially it's the idea, it's the concept, and then IP starts becoming more fully formed. So from concept to ideas to a script, that's like a script is like solid IP, because it's now really, really formed. There's authors, you have a chain of title, so that's so IP is just really a formed an idea that's been formed. So you can't just say a sentence and then that's IP and I own it or what have you. It needs to be formed. It can't be vague. It needs to have some shape. So that's what kind of IP is. It's an idea that's been shaped and formed, be it in conversations, be it writing, it's down on paper, and then you've got the beginnings of an IP, a piece of IP, and then as that IP continues to develop, there's different ways that you can exploit that IP. So imagine you've come to us with an idea, and it's like, okay, well, that could be a film. Do you know what? It could also be a TV show. It could be a theatre show. Let's get a music album or musical or whatever, let's make a comic book. And so there's different ways of exploiting that IP to create spin-off bits of IP, but it comes from that original piece of IP. Does that answer your question about what IP is?
Yeah. No, it definitely does.
And then you asked I think after that you said, and why is it important?
Yeah.
So that's down to context. So so it's like, it's not important. It's just like, it's not important to my mom, is it? So so it's like, yeah. So it's like if you're an actor and you're for hire, IP, like you don't need to worry about it. You need to worry, focus on how you're going to tell this story, how you're going to do your job. Like you got a big enough job already. It's important if you're getting into this game as a writer, producer, production company. That's when it's important, because it's important because if you don't get the legals correct, you could do an extensive amount of work and you not really get the financial residuals that you should do if you understood the structure and knew how to negotiate the deals and everything, so you can think. And that's why you get like big studios and big producers and what have you, just like killing it, milking it. This is what you know, a lot of the issues are in America right now with the strikes and what have you. It's like not, you know, not enough of it is getting down to the people who are creating the content. It's the people who, further above, who are making an extensive amount of money, and there's not like a fair system for writers and actors to actually just make a living. But that's all down to the legals of, you know, that's what it's down to, the structuring around IP, production companies, stories, ideas. So it's important if you're a writer, it's important if you're a producer, if you're a production company, but if you're a gaffer on a set, it's not important.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
makes sense.
so yeah, context is important.
I love that. You mentioned residuals, right? And just to, I guess, provide some context on the potential of what that could mean. Let's say you fight for the IP, or you're able to, you know, retain the IP on an amazing show that goes around the world. Feel free to use an example, if there's anything that jumps to mind. But how much could someone potentially make? Because I guess sometimes it's the short term in terms of like, oh, I need to get paid now. But
Are you talking from the perspective of a writer, producer, like from what? Yeah, from what context?
I would say from a writer and a producer.
I mean, from a producer's perspective, I think from a writer it kind of varies, but from a producer, let's take us for example, someone that's created the content, right? I mean, I don't want to go into how we structure our deals completely, but we get very good deals because we're, you know, our aim is to grow into those companies that kind of want to buy us. Do you know what I mean? Like we want to be able to have that same growth, and you don't have that by taking your standard industry kind of traditional deals that a lot of production companies will take. You'd have to make, you know, 25 shows a year or whatever do you know what I mean, to see any sort of great financial growth. But we go down a different route. So maybe we'll make less content, but the content that we do make will be very, very good and travel the world and earn us a lot of money. Maybe there's, you know, the same amount that those companies that would make those 25 shows, I guess. Yeah. But I mean, in basic layman kind of terms, you know, if we take a show, we take a show to a streamer, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, lads, but if we took a show to a streamer, I won't mention any specific streamers, but if we took a show to a streamer, they'd give us a budget for our show, right? So say like we've got 10 episodes and they offer us $1 million each for each episode. That's 10 million, right? 10% of that would be our production fee. So that goes into, you know, our business account as production company, right? And then we would be paid as execs or any other capacity that we are on the show, me as actor, maybe director, Nags as executive producer, series producer, whatever other thing or whatever, you paying yourself out of that budget, right? And then profits, you know, we'd be looking at a considerable amount of the profits. So any way that show is exploited, anything that happens with that show after or whatever, we'd be getting a huge percentage of what happens there. So you can see how financially, like, that is appealing, right? I think for writers, and I think maybe this ties into why a lot of them, why they're striking at the moment, the whole thing with streamers at the moment, right, is that, and I forgot to say, with streamers, a lot of them are so big and powerful that actually they don't want to offer you back ends. Do you know what I mean? They're reluctant to offer you back ends. You know, they give such a great upfront that they're like, look, you know, after that, we own the IP now, we own this, whatever, and it becomes theirs. And I think with writers as well, the game has changed for them, because technically, if just say a streamer signs your show as a writer, you get paid what on a terrestrial, what you would usually get if it was on the BBC or whatever, is every time that was shown, you'd get a residual. Maybe you get 75% of your original 100% that you got, right? They'd give you a percentage on your residual. Now you're not getting that no more, because as far as they're concerned, we put it on our streaming side service, and it's there for people to watch anytime they want to watch it, right? Do you know what I'm saying? It's not like we're re-releasing it or we're redoing anything or whatever, which is what used to happen back in the day before they came in the game. Yeah. So writers, I think this is just I'm just touching on the tip of the iceberg, but writers are not, they're not making as much money. So they're getting bought out, and it may be quite handsome in the beginning, but that show is living on that streamer for 5-6 years. Millions of people are watching it over that period of time, and they're not getting any more money. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, it's just a very unfair scenario. So like Nags was saying, I think it feels like it's a slight loophole that's just been overlooked. And obviously the streamers have not been the ones to go, oh, look, maybe we're not giving you enough or whatever. They're not going to be the ones to do it. So I think this impasse, like this moment has to happen for the game to move forward and for us to kind of legally catch up with how content is created and put out there now. Nags, I can see you got something to add there.
So like that example that Ash gave, like on a streamer, so what they do is they own the IP. Yeah, so the production company or the producer doesn't own it anymore. They buy it, they give you a premium as well, because they're going to have it for life. So that's their way of saying, okay, look, yes, if you took it somewhere else, you're going to get, what Ash talked about, all the residuals and what have you. But we're going to give you a premium, and it can feel quite sexy in the beginning because you're getting that premium, you're getting that bigger fee, but then you're not getting those residuals, because if you took it somewhere else, if you didn't take it to a streamer. So imagine, if we took a show to one of the British broadcasters, one of the terrestrial channels, they would just take the rights for the UK and to air it a certain amount of times. And so like Ash said, after they've hit that limit, when they air it again, they relicense it. So you make money. And then also every time it's on outside of the UK, it's being licensed for a year to a channel in France or a channel in Australia, whatever. You're making that money, right? Like for life. When it's on a plane, when it becomes a classic and it's on TV at Christmas, like every time you're gonna keep getting paid. Also, like 10 years later, I don't know, there's some kind of comeback, and you made a movie or you made a TV show, and there were kids in that show. 10 years later, I was like, oh, we can make a show about the adults now, because you own the IP. So the streamers take the IP, so you can't do like nothing. But you could, like, if you work with the British broadcasters, like you still own the IP. And then you can create new things, so you can do a lot more with it. So like the streamers, it's like, because of their might and their strength and their largeness and what have you, they're able to be like, look, this is a deal, this is what we're offering. Do you get what I mean? Like, this is what's like. Don't get me wrong, they do give you a premium.
Yes.
They give you a premium. So like as a production company, it's good to have like a range of like getting like some big premiums, getting shows with UK broadcasters and then with a distributor to sell across the world and what have you. So you've got a range of incomes and what have you. But yeah, so this is the kind of stuff that they're trying to iron out in the US, because the deals that they make actors sign and like signing like a new show, and if you're the lead, it's like, all right, we want you for 7 seasons. And let's say you're doing well enough to be a lead, not an A-lister yet or what have you, and it's like, fucking hell, like they've got you for 7 seasons, and it's like 5% increments each season. It goes up when, let's say a show is banging after 3 seasons or something, and it's like you've got to work on the fees that you negotiated 3-4 years ago. So it's like, it's a really, really, really unfair system, and it's exploited by the big boys.
Do you know what? That is so complex, because I think it was Jacob Anderson. He was saying that on Game of Thrones, he never signed the that contract that you're talking about, where it's like, all right, cool, we've got you for X amount of years. I think for him personally, it was because of music, because he was like, well, what if I need to go on tour or whatever, then I can't. But I guess what you're saying is so complex, right? Because if you're like, let's say maybe in Ashley's position, you can maybe negotiate that better, but then when you're trying to come up and you've got that opportunity to be
I'm
in.
gonna stop you.
Oh,
Like,
go for it,
yeah,
please.
people on Ashley's level and above,
Mm.
it's hard to negotiate. It's hard to negotiate. They're huge. They're huge, you know, and they can commission another show. Yeah,
Yeah, I think within, like, I think you're right. I think you're both right in a sense that it's easier for me than someone else on the come up, right?
Mm.
And it's easier for probably Idris than it is for me. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's how it will kind of work. And I must say, like I'll repeat what Nag said, like, the premiums are great. And, you know, I've had some wiggle room with the streamers that I've worked with in being able to, you know, because, you know, I signed one of those contracts that tied me down to a specific show for a long period of time. And I was, you know, contractually, I wasn't able to work on any other project throughout that time, right? But I was able to negotiate that I could. And I went off and I did another very successful show at the same time that I was doing that show, which I was allowed to do. And I was also able to, before my contract was up, to renegotiate my fees, because I was on that small incremental step thing. And I kind of went back to them and was like, look, show has been way more successful than you thought it would, than anyone thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
We need to talk about this, etc. And they were quite open to that. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not saying, look, there's swings and roundabouts, right?
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of other people that have not had that experience, which means, you know, it still means that I think that they should be doing what they're doing regarding the strike, you know, and I stand in solidarity with them. But at the same time, we have to be honest about the fact that not everyone is in that position. I don't think it's fair for me to stand here and go, oh, woe is me, and it's so hard or whatever, when actually it's probably a lot easier for me to maneuver than your average person who's just starting out. So I just wanted to make that clear, that distinction.
And on that, like, there were like two people, really, really, really capable people in Ashley's team who were navigating that, you know, like fucking ridiculously, like top of their game people doing that. So not everybody.
How's the swearing thing for you?
Oh, sorry.
We're here.
I've been trying not to swear.
It's
all good. It's all good. We're here. We're here. Go for it.
But yeah, there was two very, very capable people who navigated that. And also remember, it's like, even like, you know, like much, much bigger actors and what have you, there's another element that makes it difficult to get better deals, is because let's say that you're represented at 42 or Curtis Brown or Independent or whatever, right? And you've got a really big actor, and then you negotiate a really good deal, right, with one of the streamers, because this person's a really big actor. Now everybody in that agency knows, right? So it's like, so when another actor who might not be as big as that person, and they've been beating us, like, there's a precedent been set. So we know what's possible. I know you're saying you can't say this isn't possible, but it is possible. And they might not be able to say, I've seen the contract, like, you know, I've seen, you know, because there's NDAs and what have you. But that's, you know, but people know. So like, you know, this type of deal. So the streamers can't go too far, you know, off their regime, to get what I mean.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of reminds me of what was it? Is it Piven? You know, Michael Jordan and
yes, yep.
I was watching you know, he couldn't renegotiate his fee because he signed a fee, and the bosses, once they allow someone to renegotiate and they've got a rookie on a good rate for 10 years or whatever. Like that's how they make their money, man. That, this is how they make their money on, yeah. So they're not gonna want to move away from their formula.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you. So many gems being dropped and honesty as well, which we all greatly appreciate. I'm conscious of your time, so I've got two last questions, one for each of you, right? Ashley, given the state of the industry at the moment, what would you say is the best piece of advice you would give to an actor starting out in this day and age?
I mean, obviously, I always get asked this question.
Yeah.
And it's a tough one. If I'm honest with you, it's the hardest question to answer because there is no real like solid blueprint for this game because we're in 2023 where you see people be on Instagram for 6 months and then become the biggest star in the world next year. Whereas the next guy is at drama school and has been for like 5 years and is still struggling to get work. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like for me to say certain things, I guess there'll be some people that will be like, oh, that's a good piece of advice. And then other people that will be like, bro, I've been trying that for time. It don't work. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's so vast, like the access points at the moment and how you can get in there. I guess your journey is your journey. But one thing that never changes, in my opinion, is every day waking up, looking in the mirror and going, how can I become better at what I do? Do you know what I'm saying? I think that part is never going to change, right? So look at all the angles, look at that person that is at drama school, taking accent coaching classes or whatever every week and improvisation classes and Stanislavski classes and whatever they're doing, right? And then look at that other person that is using social media to their advantage and the latest technology to network or whatever and immersing themselves in the industry by being outside, being at the events that they should be at or whatever, and try and combine, you know what I mean, a balance of those two. No one wants to be the guy, don't ever be the person that is annoying people because I just think, I think those people get overlooked. And sometimes they have great amounts of talent, but actually, in my opinion, the people that shout the loudest usually are not the greatest at what they do because there's they worry more about showing people they can do something rather than just doing it. So I say, do those two things and, keep the passion and your love for what you do at the core of what is going on. Don't think about, I can't wait until I'm Damson. I can't wait until I'm Daniel. I can't wait until and then I'll be rich and then I'll have this and then I'll have that or whatever. One day at a time, think about today, think about how you're going to be the best you can in this scene, this show, this clip where you walk past or whatever, whatever it may be, right? Have that love and have that passion for it. And also, I mean, if you get time, come to Kingdom.
Yeah, we've got a drama school. Yeah, come to Kingdom.
There we go. No, I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you, Ashley. Nagajan, what advice would you give to someone or group of people setting up a production company in this day and age, given all the bumps and bruises that you guys have both experienced?
So work out what type of production company you are. So are you scripted? Are you non-scripted? Are you reality? If you're scripted, what are you, comedy? Do you do lots of period? Do you do like music related shows, whatever it is? Like kind of try and work out what type of production company you are. Then kind of work out financially. So now it's about resources. So what's your starting point? Like, are you starting from a point of like having nothing, no money, no nothing, or you've got a little bit of money, you've got a full-time job, or you've got a bit of investment and what have you. So you've got to work out what your resources are, and then work out, right, how will I be able to keep functioning if we don't get a commission in 5 years? Yeah, like how will I keep this working and keep this moving? So you've got to work out, do you have a part-time job? Do you have investment? Is there a few of you and you've all got part-time jobs, so you're able to kind of keep it afloat and and what have you? So you need to kind of work out, I guess you need to work out your finances, right? I remember when we first started the company, when we were just, people were, kind of saying, yeah, it takes about 5 years, but like again, I'm like, no, we're going to do it in 2, 3 maximum. Do you know what I mean? But 6 years, we've had one commission, we've done a single drama for Sky, but we've got a feature film that's pretty much there, and a TV show that's almost there. It's in paid development with the broadcaster, which is really, really close as well. But that's been a long time. So we've been we've needed to be able to sustain the company. So as a production company, work out your finances and what you can do, and then think about. So one of the things, again, this was just naivety and a lack of understanding when we started the company, when we were talking to other production companies, because a lot of people were like, oh, Ashley's got a company. A lot of people were doing meetings and stuff. They were asking about our ideas. And what I started realizing was, oh, a lot of these production companies that we're talking to don't have ideas. They rely on buying IP from writers. That's just normal, though. That's standard. That's actually the normal way of doing it. We're not normal. We're also ideas people. So we generate IP as well. And I didn't realize that until a few years into running the company. It's like, oh shit, like we're also creators and producers and execs and a production company. So for you, when you're starting your production company, like you might not be an ideas person, but you're a great producer. Do you know what I mean? And you know how to work with people who do have ideas. So again, you're gonna need to have like a little budget to option things and pay for legal fees and all that kind of stuff. So work out who it is that you need, who you're gonna have on your team. So as an example, we have Laura who works with us, who's our head of development. That would be nothing without her, because she is story, and develop story. It's with her hard work and and her brain smarts, that's helped us get into these positions where we've got shows that are almost green lit. Now we wouldn't be able to do that, just me and Ash. We would need a development person.
Yeah.
So work out, are you the development person, or are you bringing somebody in? How are you going to pay their salary? So you've got to figure that out. And then you've got to work out within your team, who's going to be negotiating your deals. So again, I didn't know this stuff, and I didn't do the best of some of the agreements that we did in the beginning, even though I had a lawyer on them. And in high school, I looked at them and it's like, so it's like, oh shit, I need to be on par with the lawyer, even though the lawyer's going to be doing all the stuff. Like, yeah, you need to be thinking about all the worst case scenarios. So again, in your team, work out who that's going to be. So in your production company, who's negotiating, who's business lead, who's on development, and who's going to be the sales person, who's going to be creating the treatments. Are you paying somebody else, like a graphic designer, to do your treatments and graphical decks and this, that, and what have you? So try and work all of that stuff out and try and cost it all, and work out how will you be able to sustain yourself for 3 to 5 years if you don't have a commission in that time, which is likely. Especially if you're doing scripted drama. Premium scripted drama is pretty much the most difficult thing outside of like big US studio budget movies, but premium drama is the most difficult thing to get over the line. And much easier would be an indie low budget movie, which is like the difference between night and day. So yeah, work out who's in your team, make sure you've got all of the core elements, make sure that your financial model can sustain for 3 to 5 years.
Wow. Yeah, there's some huge keys there. Just want to say thank you guys for the info, the inspiration, and the insight. Because that was huge. that's it for this session. Stay tuned for the next one, but thank you guys so much, because I know you're busy. So yeah, we really appreciate it in terms of, you know, just taking time out to give back. Thank you.